Well, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with the esteemed Dr. Eric Lopkin. And, it's been it's been 4 months, about 3.5 months since Biden took office. And I'm a little troubled. Your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's gone back on every campaign promise he made. He promised not to interfere with the Supreme Court. He just put together a committee to study whether they should add 4 seats to it and pack the court. He said he was going to stand up to the left on some of these wacko proposals. AOC and John Larson, along with a couple others, just pushed the Green New Deal up to the forefront again. So he promised he was going to bring the country together and be a centrist president. And as soon as he took office, he went back on all of that and just became a puppet of the left.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I do know his career, and there was a time when he was maybe right of center.
Yes, I mean, he was one of the key figures that pushed through 3 strikes and you're out. He was always somewhat right of center up until the Obama administration.
What do you attribute to? I attribute his the current situation, because I don't think he's in control at all. I don't think he even knows really what's going on. Literally.
No, we know for a fact that he's suffering from dementia. They've kept him from the press. They've kept him from dealing with the Republicans. So obviously he's not really in control.
Who is in control? That's the question.
That is a good question. And, I wish I had an answer for it. It's definitely not Nancy Pelosi, because Pelosi has actually been pushing back against the left, where Biden has been pushing the left's agenda. So my guess would be Kamala Harris.
I think you might be right. Yes.
I mean,
she may be the one that's in control.
Yeah,
where does this play out?
There have been several occasions where he's referred to her as President Harris.
It's chilling. One of the least effective senators, someone that controlled maybe less than 1% of the vote in a very liberal primary. Scary. Totally not qualified for the job.
No, she's definitely not qualified for the job. She wasn't qualified for her previous job. We'll refer back to the interview in Politico that the head of the California Democratic Party came out and said point blank that Kamala Harris was given these positions because he was sleeping with her.
Oh, yeah. So common knowledge that's not in the press, obviously. So the question really is, where does this go? I mean, America, even with its changes, has always been a right of center country. How does this play in Peoria?
It doesn't play in Peoria well at all. The problem is the Democrats are taking steps to basically minimize mainstream America. They're pushing to add 4 justices to the Supreme Court so they can pack the court and have control of the Supreme Court, which, by the way, is absolutely a blatant, useless power play, because the current Supreme Court, with the 6-3 conservative majority, has found against Donald Trump in his case against Twitter, has upheld gay rights. I mean, these are the things the liberals want them to do, and yet they're still trying to pack the court, even though there's absolutely no reason based on their decisions.
Well, what happens in the midterms?
Well, the midterms, the Republicans are going to take back the House, probably take back the Senate as well. This honestly has virtually nothing to do with the political climate. This is just historically, if you take a look, the incumbent president loses the Senate and House every midterm election.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit. I think this is so extreme that it's going to, yes, it's a natural phenomenon. This time I think what's going on is going to put fuel on the fire. Another problem is also going to be you can't hide Biden forever. Sorry, you just can't.
No, and that's the thing, though. The press has completely ignored the problem. How long can they do this and still call themselves journalists?
Well, that's been done a long time ago. Very troubling, very scary. And the other part that I like to finish, which I cannot take credit for because I heard this on the actual Tucker Carlson show. And he's really talking about American voters being displaced or their vote watered down by illegal immigration because the Democrats have lost middle America and they need replacements. They've even lost some of the black community.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about that for years, even going back to our time on terrestrial radio. The illegal immigrants they're trying to give them the ability to vote by keeping voter registration laws down. We saw what just happened in Georgia, where they passed stricter ID laws. And ironically, the ID laws, 34 states have voter ID laws. So this is not a minority thing. This is most of the country requires ID for you to vote. The laws in Georgia actually made it easier to vote and gave greater access. The Washington Post came out with a piece basically calling Biden a liar to his face, gave him 4 Pinocchios, and yet Biden is still banging the drum against the Georgia law, despite the fact that there is no truth to what he's saying. So
well, yes, he's always had problems with the truth, but then you dovetail that with dementia. I think he's just told. I really believe he's told what to say. I think his press conferences takes him weeks to prepare for, even with the little pic. I mean, how scary is it that you have a president with little pictures of the people so he can identify them? That is like something out of a bad movie.
It is frightening. I mean, he's obviously a puppet president. There's no way around it at this point. And if the press does not start calling him on it, we've got to start calling the press on it. And,
how much damage is going to be done before this thing gets reversed?
There can be a lot of damage done because honestly, I don't think it's going to be reversed until the midterm elections. They can push through the vote on the Supreme Court before then. They can push through all sorts of negative legislation before then. So we are in a lot of trouble right now if we don't start holding these people accountable.
And I think Trump is partially responsible for this. His actions, what do you call it, insurrection, really gave the Democrats the Senate. Sorry, he just did. He handed it to him.
I'm actually going to disagree with that. He was not by any stretch of the imagination the nice guy that people wanted. He was absolutely miserable to deal with, but his policies helped a lot of people.
His policies were fantastic overall, both economically and geopolitically. I'm talking about after the election, the way he behaved. I believe people just had enough of him, and that's what swung the Georgia seats to the Democrats.
No, I think it was much bigger than that because the Democrats started going after Trump and started portraying him in this negative light before he ever took office. So I think it was a matter of a 4-year coup attempt that, I mean, yeah, he didn't handle it well, but I don't think it had anything to do with him as a person. I think it had to do with the bullshit that the Democrats were pulling for 4 years
a combination of both,
to try to manipulate the optics.
I agree with you on that, but I also think that if he had his crap together, he could have done. He might have won, and he would have forestalled the takeover of the Senate.
Possibly.
But on that note, we will conclude this edition of Carnivore Bites, and we will be live on Friday with a guest.
Right. We will be here Friday at 4 o'clock at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio, where you can call in and be part of the conversation.
We'll see you then. Lopkin. Thank our listeners. Take care.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week on carnivoreradio.com, exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.